pretty sure I made this coffee about 3 hours ago. Mum life. I have wanted to share this episode and my experience of postpartum for quite a long time now. Whilst I have been sharing my journey online between social media of TikTok and Instagram, I do want to start a bit of a sit down chat series here on YouTube where like a podcast style, I guess, but more just like a chat with a friend. There are so many aspects of motherhood and postpartum that are either not spoken about or I guess can make mums feel really alone during this journey. So I want to share my experience because I've had 2 children now, and both of my experiences could not be further worlds apart, to be honest. Two very different experiences. And I just want to share my journey in hopes that if another mum is feeling alone, or I guess if this resonates with you, then it might help you through your journey. So this is definitely not about teaching people how to be a parent. It's more just hopefully it resonates with someone. So our children are now 1 yesterday and will be 3 later this month. And I have been reflecting so much on motherhood. The past 3 years have just been the most amazing 3 years, as well as the hardest 3 years of my life. So when I was pregnant, I thought I was ready. I was so naive to what was about to happen and how much my world would completely change. I had been following so many accounts online where you would set up the nursery and make the meals and have everything just prepared, because I thought that if I was prepared, it would help me cope postpartum. And to a good degree, it does. Absolutely. I'm one of those people that likes to be organized and has a lot of structure. However, it is so not what you see online. Let's be real. Looking back now, there are so many times where people say, are you prepared as much as you can be? And to a degree, I thought I was. Looking back now, I realize that nothing can fully prepare you for what motherhood is going to look like. And I guess the reality of the day to day. It changes you in ways you didn't even know possible. I do also just want to say that during this episode, I will be talking about postpartum depression. So if this is something that resonates with you and you are struggling, please know that you're not alone. I think that was one of the hardest things for me, is that I felt alone during my journey. Please reach out for help. It is so common. There are so many times that people either go undiagnosed or just brush their feelings under the rug because they feel like, oh, people have done this before, it's fine. So if this does resonate with you, please reach out. There is no stigma, or there shouldn't be any stigma. There is no shame. There is no guilt. It is fine. You are not alone. I'm going to try drink my coffee before it's too icy. It was hot a few hours ago. Okay, so one of the main things that I struggled with in my postpartum journey was breastfeeding. And this is something that I did not anticipate to be so incredibly difficult. I feel like we are sold this narrative that it's so natural and your baby will just latch and you'll feed and it's great, move on. But it is so much harder than what we're actually told. And I feel like we're not prepared enough for the reality of breastfeeding. And regardless if you bottle feed, formula, whatever, it honestly does not matter. It really doesn't. But the experience of breastfeeding is so different to what is actually portrayed online, or how, I guess, everyone's experience is told. So for me, breastfeeding became so much more than just feeding my child. It became something that I began measuring my worth as a mother against. And in the hospital, I was, I guess, educated a little bit from the midwives about what to expect, or they showed me different latching techniques, and as well as different things of how long it takes your milk to establish and get mature milk and blah, all these things that I had no idea about. I had so much trouble with Aubrey where she wouldn't latch properly. I had to try the nipple shields. I had so many different things that we tried, bottles and all sorts. And it actually ended up being a very stressful experience. And I think it created a lot of anxiety for me and stress that then, because I'm also such a perfectionist, I had this idea that it was going to be so simple. I would just feed her, and it was nothing like that at all. So I started to not really eat, not take care of myself, which obviously then impacts your milk. I was very stressed, which impacts your milk. And my supply just never established properly. And I think it was about a month in, I had this overwhelming feeling that something was wrong with me. Maybe my body wasn't producing milk properly because of something I had done, or it was just insane. And I felt like such a failure because I couldn't provide for my child as a mother. And looking back now, it's so silly because in reality, I could have just given her formula and she'd be fine. But it was something I was so determined. I wanted to feed for both of my girls. And with Aubrey, it just didn't happen the way that I thought it would. Over the course of the first few weeks of her being a newborn, I started to deteriorate pretty rapidly. I didn't realize at the time what was happening, but I started to get these thoughts and these feelings that every time she cried, it was my fault, or she wouldn't settle properly, it was my fault. And I would blame myself for so many things. If she wasn't sleeping, if she was happy with other people and not on me, that did she not like me? Did we not have a connection? I just started beginning to overthink everything. And I think it was around 4 or 5 weeks, when she was 4 or 5 weeks old, I started having really bad thoughts that she would be better off without me and that I wasn't a good mother. Looking back now, I see things so differently, and I see myself as a first-time mom and putting so much pressure on myself to be perfect and to have it all together. And realistically, none of us have it together. Let's be honest. Even 3 years in, I have a friend who I was chatting to yesterday who is about to become a mum herself, and I was saying, look, it's still a guessing game. It's just a new challenge. They're a little bit older. Yes, you've got a bit of experience, a bit of confidence, but it's a guessing game. And also keeping in mind that not only was the feeding really hard, but the sleep deprivation. Oh my God. I'm someone who needs 8 hours minimum a night, or just don't talk to me. And to go from having that to maybe sleeping an hour at a time, holy dooly, that was hard. I think too, every time I would feed her, I would then be scrolling on my phone because I would be sitting here for 20, 30 minutes at a time feeding, and I would be looking at people's daily routines with a newborn, or just different things associated to motherhood, and I would subconsciously start comparing my experience and my day-to-day to what they were doing. And obviously online, everyone shares their highlights, which is also why I wanted to share this. Not to be a negative Nancy, but just to, I guess, show the reality and what it's like being a mum and my experience, and hopefully other mums understand and feel less alone. But not only as a first-time mum are you trying to navigate motherhood, you're also recovering from one of the biggest hormonal shifts of your life, as well as the biggest adjustment to your life. You've now got to care for a newborn. But I just started believing that everyone else was coping better than me, and I just wasn't fit to be a mum. I wasn't good at this. As someone who is such a perfectionist, it was really difficult. I genuinely thought that there was something either wrong with me or wrong with what I was doing, and I wasn't good. I wasn't good enough. So if you're in that season and you are struggling and it's hard, don't get me wrong, I think the first 12 months are the hardest. Definitely, because there is so much change in so many aspects between you, your child, your home life, relationships, time, everything is so different. But if you are struggling, it doesn't make you a bad mum. Please do not think that. I don't understand why we've conditioned ourselves to compare to social media, or just, I guess, compare to other people's narratives, and I guess other people's highlights probably more than narratives. But it does not mean you are failing. It does not mean you're a bad mum. It is so normal for all of us to experience this. We just don't talk about it enough. I think too, it's really difficult. Like my mum or my parents' generation, or even my grandparents, I would often hear comments of, well, we did this and we made it through, and the comparison of motherhood, even from generations. And it's like, oh, well, young mums these days, they think it's hard, they've got that. It is still hard regardless. And just because they had a different experience and they would have positives and negatives does not mean that what you are going through is any less difficult. I really want to reiterate that because it annoys me so much. But anyway, that's a story for another day. When I started to feel these emotions and feelings of not being good enough as a mum and that she would be better off without me, I did reach out during a midwife follow-up appointment, and they tried to help me in different ways. However, I did have that sense of, I guess, I was resisting help a little bit because I didn't want to look like a failure. I didn't want to accept that I was failing, even though I wasn't. And I remember talking to my GP at the time, and she recommended going on antidepressants to just help with the hormones and blah. And I immediately just had this shutdown, and I was like, nope, not happening. I'm not depressed. I'm enjoying aspects. I was in complete denial that I was feeling depression, because I think when you traditionally think of depression, you think of someone who can't get out of bed, someone who is sad and crying all the time. And whilst there was occasions where I was upset or emotional, I didn't show the traditional signs of being depressed. And looking back, I wish that I had listened. I kind of wonder whether if I had have seen someone's video like this where they talk about their experience and I could have related to it, that I would have been a bit more accepting maybe. I would have had a very different experience had I have just accepted help earlier on, because I would compare myself to other friends who had fridges and freezers full of milk, and their supply was just, they had so much milk, and I just felt like a failure because I didn't. And it's portrayed that it's this natural, easy thing of breastfeeding. It's really not. It's not the same at all. I was also afraid that people would look at me and be like, I didn't think she could do it. Or, I don't know. I don't know if it's the inner perfectionism or if it's just this front that everyone puts on. I also couldn't comprehend how something that I wanted so bad, I wanted this baby, I wanted to be a mum, I wanted all of this, and I didn't want to seem ungrateful for not enjoying every moment. And you'd constantly hear as a new mum, enjoy your sleep, or enjoy every moment, it goes by so quickly, and well, all these things. And time does go incredibly fast. The days are long, but the years are short is such an accurate saying. But hearing those things constantly and being told to enjoy it, and how lucky you are to have a healthy child, and whilst you were so incredibly grateful for that and you love that, you get this guilt feeling because you're like, why am I not enjoying this every day? Why is this not this amazing experience I thought it would be? And there are days where you absolutely love it. Things are going well. Everything's great. We're good. And then there are days where it's just shit. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is just crap. You're so tired. They won't stop crying. So many things are happening. You're bleeding for weeks. Your boobs are sore. It's just crap. You haven't had a shower for a week. It's hard, but it is so worth it. I think too, another thing that is really hard for mums particularly is we become the default parent, regardless if you are breastfeeding or formula feeding. We are the ones who tend to do most of the work. It is really difficult to not grow resentment towards your partner. Distinctively remember just feeling so annoyed at my husband that he could just get up, go have a shower when he wanted. He could make food when he wanted. He could go to the shops. He could do anything he wanted during the day, and he didn't have to think twice about it necessarily. Yes, he would check in and help me, all those sorts of things, but it was so different to how I was. I had to then time, if she's going to have a feed, it's probably going to be this. I need to make sure the nappy bag's up. There was just so many things that you can't just drop everything and go out for a few hours. You are the default parent. You are the one. Things are just not simple. It's no longer just about you. As time progressed, as the months went by and I was working with my GP with different things, I ended up going on some medication that would help with my milk supply, and it was great. It worked really well and things started to become easier. However, the hormonal shift, there was still something just not quite right in terms of how I was feeling. And I didn't realize at the time that that was actually elements of postpartum depression. But I think it was around maybe 10 months when I started to the day-to-day tasks started getting incredibly difficult. And that could be as simple as having to take the bins out or unpack the dishwasher I was so overwhelmed and I just couldn't, I would be so annoyed. And it wasn't that I was annoyed I had to do it. It was just, I can't explain it. It was just so hard to do anything. And that's sort of when I went and actually got help. And I was like, look, this is how I'm feeling. And my GP was like, look, I think we should really start the antidepressants. See how you go. Give it a go. It will not affect your baby. And I was also returning to work around 12, 13 months. So I was having a little bit of anxiety about that as well. And going on the medication changed my life in the best way possible. I remember it was probably about 2 weeks into taking the tablets, and I was driving to work, and I remember just this feeling of the weight being lifted off my shoulders, and I was like, oh my God. And I started just enjoying life again and the day-to-day tasks of being a mom and being me. And I wish I did this earlier. I really do. But for me, it was one of the hardest things to admit that I needed help. And looking back, I'm like, oh my God, I wish I did that sooner. It's really not weak asking for help. It's actually pretty strong to ask for help. I think too, one of the biggest things, now that I've gone through the first year of both daughters and completely different experiences, but look now, I'm 3 years later and a completely different person, but we made it. If I was to go back and tell my younger self, my first time mother self, bits of advice, first of all, I would give myself the biggest hug in the world and say, it will be okay. You will get through it. But I wish that I could tell myself that you don't have to love every day to love your child. Formula is not failure. Your worth is definitely not measured by whether you can breastfeed or not and how your breastfeeding experience goes. Bonding can take time. It's not always instant for everyone. That is actually something that is very common for a lot of mums. We just don't talk about it. And I wish I could tell myself that asking for help is actually strength, and it is not a sign that you're failing as a mum if you ask for help. I wish that I just knew that struggling was not failure, because we all do it. Some are just better at masking it than others. And the common saying of it takes a village to raise a child, and that village, whether it's support for the mum or support for the child or whatever, I genuinely think that if we can support mums and support each other, we would have such a different postpartum experience, 100%. So that is all I have for today. If you did like this episode, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, because I'm hoping to do a few more of these sit down episode chats. So